$1.46 million. That's what Americans say you need to retire in 2026. It's the number in every headline, the number that makes you open your retirement account, look at the balance, and feel a little sick. But here's the truth nobody puts in the headline. That number isn't a math problem. It's a feeling. And for most people, the real number is less than half of it. A typical retired couple needs about $293,000 in savings, not $1.46 million. So, before you decide you're doomed, let me show you the math nobody shows you. So where does this number actually come from? Because everyone repeats it, but almost nobody tells you where it was born. It comes from one study, the Northwestern Mutual 2026 Planning and Progress Study. And here's the part that changes everything. They didn't calculate it, they asked. They surveyed about 4,000 Americans one simple question. How much do you think you'll need to retire comfortably? And the average answer was $1.46 million. That's it. It's not your spending, it's not your Social Security, it's not your life. It's a vibe. It's the average of 4,000 people's anxiety. And you can prove it's a feeling, because look at how it moves. Last year, that same number was about 1.26 million. This year, 1.46. It jumped 15% in 12 months. Now think about that. Your retirement didn't get 15% more expensive in a single year. Your fear did. Inflation, longer lifespans, headlines about Social Security running dry. All of it pushed the number up. Not your actual cost of living, your worry about it. And the study basically admits it. In the same survey, 46% of Americans said they don't feel financially prepared for retirement. Nearly half said they're afraid of outliving their money. So, you've got millions of anxious people, and you average their guesses, and you get one number that sounds official, but it isn't a plan. It's an anxiety index wearing a suit. Treating it like a target is like asking a room full of nervous people how deep the ocean is, and then refusing to swim. So, here's where we start. You've been quoted a price for your retirement that's based on a mood, not on you. And in the next 12 minutes, I'm going to hand you the real formula. Run it for a couple. Run it for someone single. Stress test it against Social Security getting cut, and show you exactly when this scary number is actually true. If you've ever felt behind because of a number like this, subscribe. This whole channel is built for people who are catching up. Okay, but that 1.46 million didn't come from nowhere. There's a reason it feels serious. Let me show you the logic hiding inside it, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's a famous retirement guideline called the 4% rule. A financial planner named William Bengen worked it out back in 1994. The idea is simple. If you pull out about 4% of your savings in your first year of retirement and adjust for inflation after that, your money should last roughly 30 years. And that's where the 25 times comes from, by the way. If you can safely pull 4% a year, then your pile has to be 25 times the amount you pull. 4% and 25 times are the same rule, just flipped. Keep that in your pocket. So flip it around. 4% of 1.46 million is about $58,000 a year, and that actually sounds about right for a comfortable retirement. But here's the fatal assumption. That math only works if every single dollar of your retirement income comes from your portfolio. If your savings are doing 100% of the work. And who told you that? Who said you'd retire with zero other income? Because that's not how retirement works for almost anybody. You're forgetting the biggest piece, Social Security. Right now, about half of older Americans live in households where Social Security is at least half of their income. For about 1 in 4, it's 90% or more. It is not a rounding error. For most people, it's the foundation the whole retirement stands on. And here's why it matters so much. Social Security is a paycheck you cannot outlive, and it goes up with inflation almost every year. To replace it with savings alone, you'd need a fortune, because that's exactly what the 4% rule is trying to recreate. Social Security hands you a big chunk of it for free. So here's the real formula. Write it down. Your number is not 25 times what you spend. It's 25 times what you spend minus what's already coming in. Portfolio equals 25 times your spending minus your Social Security. And we can put real numbers on that. In 2026, the average retired worker gets about $2,071 a month from Social Security. That's roughly $25,000 a year. For a couple, 2 checks, about $50,000 a year, guaranteed, adjusted for inflation for the rest of your life. That one subtraction, minus Social Security, is the entire difference between a number that terrifies you and a number you can actually hit. Let me prove it. Let's start with a normal married couple. Not rich, not broke, just typical. First, what do they actually spend? According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, households headed by someone 65 or older spend about $61,000 a year. And notice, that's less than the average American household, which spends around $78,000. Because in retirement, costs usually go down. The mortgage gets paid off, the commute disappears, the kids move out. So, $61,000 a year in spending. Now subtract their Social Security. 2 average checks, about $50,000 a year. 61,000 minus 50,000 leaves a gap of about $11,700 a year. That's all their savings actually has to cover. 25 times 11,700 is $293,000. Not 1.46 million, 293,000. That is roughly 1/5 of the number that's been keeping you up at night. Now, I'm going to stay honest with you, because that's the whole point of this channel. Most people don't have $293,000 either. The median retirement savings for households in their late 60s is around $200,000. So there's still a gap for a lot of folks. But feel the difference. You're not $1.5 million away from retiring. You might be a good year or two of saving away. That's a problem you can solve. The other one just makes you give up. And let me be fair about the risk, too, because I promised you honest. That $61,000 in spending is an average. Your healthcare costs can spike late in life, and a long stay in care can blow through any plan, so build in a cushion. But a cushion on top of $293,000 is a very different conversation than chasing $1.46 million from scratch. One is a tune-up. The other is a reason to quit before you start. But maybe you're not a couple. Maybe it's just you. And here's where I have to be straight with you, because if you're single, your number goes up. Say you're on your own, and you spend about $45,000 a year. Singles usually spend less than couples, but you've only got one Social Security check, about $25,000 a year, not $50,000. So your gap is bigger. $45,000 minus $25,000 is about $20,000 a year your savings has to cover. 25 times 20,000, about $504,000. So look at these two side by side. A couple, around $293,000. A single person, around $500,000. Higher, but still nowhere near $1.46 million. And that's not a flaw in the math. That's the math being honest with you. One Social Security check has to do the work of 2. When you're single, your safety net is smaller, so your savings has to be bigger. Nobody tells you that because it depends on whether you're single or married, doesn't fit in a headline. And if $500,000 still sounds steep, look at the levers you actually control. Working 2 extra years does 2 things at once. It's 2 more years of saving, and it lets your Social Security check grow. Delaying when you claim can raise that check meaningfully. Paying off the house before you stop working drops your spending number. None of that requires a windfall. It just requires knowing which dials move your number, and now you do. But the headline never tells you about dials. It just hands you one giant scary figure and walks away. So now you know which line is yours, and either way, you finally have your number instead of a stranger's. Now, I can hear the objection, because it's the loudest one. But Social Security won't even be there when I retire. So your whole formula falls apart. Let's deal with that head on, honestly, because that exact fear is baked right into the 1.46 million. Here are the actual facts. According to the 2025 Social Security Trustees Report, the main retirement trust fund is projected to run short around the year 2033. That part is real. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But here's what the headline leaves out. Running short does not mean zero. If nothing changes, no fix, no reform, nothing, the program is still projected to pay about 77% of scheduled benefits from the money still coming in. That's a cut of roughly 23%. It's a haircut. It is not a disappearance. So let's be brutal and put that worst case into our couple's math. Instead of $50,000 a year in Social Security, cut it by 23%. Now they get about $38,000. Their spending is still $61,000, so the gap grows to about $23,000 a year. 25 times that is about $579,000. So even in the worst realistic case, Social Security gets cut. No one in Washington lifts a finger. Your number roughly doubles to $579,000, which is still a fraction of 1.46 million. A 23% cut to your foundation is a real problem. You should plan for it. But it is not the apocalypse that the scary number assumes. And one more thing the headlines skip. This has happened before. Back in 1983, Social Security was weeks from a shortfall, and Congress patched it. They tweaked the retirement age and the taxes, and the checks kept coming. Cutting benefits by a quarter is wildly unpopular with the most reliable voters in the country, so betting on zero is, frankly, a strange bet. Plan for the haircut, don't plan for the funeral. Here's the difference. You can plan for a cut. You can't plan for a panic. I want to tell you about a couple I sat down with a few years ago. They were in their late 50s. They had about $200,000 saved between them, and they were convinced they had blown it. The husband had this line I still remember. He said, "We're going to be working until the day we die," because they'd heard you need $1.5 million, and they weren't even close. So we did exactly what you and I just did. We wrote down what they actually spent. We subtracted the 2 Social Security checks they'd be getting, and the gap that was left, the part their savings had to cover, was about $8,000 a year. 8,000 times 25, a little over $200,000. They already had it. They'd had it for years. They just measured it against the wrong number. And I watched about 20 years of fear leave that room in roughly 90 seconds. Nothing about their money changed that day. The math changed. And that's the thing I need you to hear. Most people aren't actually behind. They're just measuring their real life against a number that was never meant for them. Now, I'm not going to lie to you in the other direction either. Because for some people, 1.46 million is exactly right, maybe even low. So let me tell you honestly when this number is true. There are 3 big ones. 1, if you want a big lifestyle. Remember, to actually need 1.46 million, your savings has to cover a gap of about $58,000 a year on top of Social Security. For a couple, that means spending around $108,000 a year in retirement. If that's the life you want, travel, a second home, the good stuff, then yes, the headline number is right for you. 2, where you live. This one's huge. A comfortable retirement in West Virginia costs around $58,000 a year. In California, estimates run closer to $120,000, which pushes your number toward 1.8 million. In Hawaii, over $180,000 a year, which can mean over $3 million. Same person, same life. Your zip code alone can triple your number. 3, if you retire early. Say you want to stop at 55. Social Security doesn't start until 62 at the earliest. So for 7, 10, 15 years, your portfolio has to carry 100% of the load with 0 Social Security filling the gap. That's exactly the scenario where the 4% math demands $1 million plus. So the number isn't a lie. It's just not a universal answer. It's your answer. And now you actually know how to find it. So let's make this real. Here's how you find your honest number right now on the back of a napkin. 3 steps. Step 1. Estimate what you'll actually spend in a year in retirement. Be real, not scared. Remember, most people spend less than they did while working. Step 2. Subtract your Social Security. You can get your real estimate from your statement on the Social Security website. 1 check if you're single, 2 if you're married. Step 3. Take what's left and multiply it by 25. That's it. That's your honest number. Let me run one with you so it sticks. Say you'll spend $55,000 a year. You're married, so 2 Social Security checks. Call it $50,000. 55 minus 50 is $5,000. Times 25 is $125,000. That's the whole target. $125,000 versus the $1.46 million you were told to fear. Run your numbers and watch what happens to the panic. $1.46 million was never your number. It was a headline. It was the average of 4,000 strangers' anxiety. This, your spending, minus your safety net, times 25. This is your number. Now, where you set your own dial is up to you. Want to be more conservative than 4%? Add a cushion for healthcare. Plan for that Social Security cut. Good. Do it. I'm not here to make your decision for you. I'm here to make sure you're starting from the truth instead of from fear. And if this took even a little weight off your chest, do me a favor. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell. We do the honest math here every single week for people who are catching up. That's the whole job. Because here's the thing. There's one decision that wrecks more retirement numbers than the stock market ever will, and it's not your investments. It's whether you rent or buy your home, and almost everyone does that math completely wrong. That's the next one. I'll see you there.